Are RFID tags the mark of the devil? I'm normally not one to look at these sort of things, but in light of recent events, my views on similar things has made them look questionable at best. Whilst biblical fundamentalists and end-time prophecies will say that they are the mark of the beast, as stated in the Bible, and may rely on biblical passages to confirm this, understanding the secular impact as well as the Christian one is just as important to understand the position of this. From what I'm seeing, I'm inclined to agree that they are the mark of the beast, but the impact isn't what they're saying, and it just shows as much a fall in society as does dogmatic adherence to biblical teachings without modern grounding. There's also the fact that other things in the past have been suggested as potential marks of the beast, including barcodes, which are plentiful today but are no longer considered as such. But I'm going to explain in no uncertain terms why I think these are the mark of the beast and prove to you the impact these can have on each of us. First of all, what is an RFID chip? Radio frequency identity chips, according to American news site The Hill, are identifying transponders that typically carry a unique identification number that can be tagged with user data, such as health records, social media profiles, and financial information. All very interesting, and quite frankly a miracle of technology, less than 100 years after the first computer was built, now capable of storing nearly as much data as was required to launch the Apollo missions. So, many things are possible with just a wave of one's hand, from accessing health records to buying the weekly groceries. All these things on one tiny chip, no bigger than a grain of rice. One can see the advantages of this from just a practical viewpoint alone. I personally have a preference for smaller $2 Australian coins, which are much easier to use compared to the bulkier and less portable £2 sterling coins, something which rendered the £5 coin a rare occurrence in any transaction today. A wave of the hand, you can buy all manner of things. It's really good, and looks cool besides. However, as ever, there are some disadvantages that are noted on many sites. Having one's personal data stored on such a tiny thing that could easily be scanned at any moment is bad enough, along with sneakily taking money out of one's account without noticing. Minor radiation exposure is suggested, though probably not as great a threat as some might think. The expense of fitting one is another concern, and the health risks of getting one implanted in the first place is noted too. However, I feel one thing is not addressed as much as it should be, and that is the potential of system shutdown. This is something that is not unique to the implanted RFID chips, but something that can affect many people today who don't have the chip. This has happened to me fairly recently, in fact. I can show you, because I've got here an old bank card, and yes, you are seeing the numbers there. I don't care. This bank closed on me. No one showing it. I don't particularly care. Normally I don't do that on the channel, but when you're simply going around your usual banking business and then all of a sudden your bank account is frozen and they decide to put your account on review for some random reason, and then less than a week later close it, no explanation, refusing to give any answers when you ask for it. All very well and good during the investigation, because, well, who knows what you might do. but then afterwards just refusing to give you answers, apart from we are under FCA regulations and have no reason to disclose our reasons, which is really a cop-out in my opinion. I tried talking to the Financial Ombudsman and they said they did nothing wrong, even though they still got over £1,000 of my hard-earned money, which I could ill afford to lose at that point, squirreled away somewhere in their system. They have not told me why it's gone. They've not told me anything. All this caused a huge issue with my finances, delayed many of my important payments, put my accounts into arrears and killed my credit score. So finding an alternative was borderline impossible. Whilst I was able to recover from this and get a bank that was able to give me an account to get paid into and make payments from, ultimately it shows how reliant we are on systems built around cards and bank accounts with little physical presence. I was unable to contact them, unable to contact that bank by phone, and my complaints have been met with the same issues. This is just totally ridiculous. The sheer amount of control they have, that can just destroy our lives. Now, you bear in mind that this is not something unique to me. Nigel Farage, the former head of the UK Independence Party and now the Reform Britain Party, has also faced similar issues with his bank closing on him due to his opinions being aired online, which is just ridiculous. The fact that they will disagree with something and can just close you down. That is an incredibly dangerous thing. Something that, whilst I'm not particularly big fan of Nigel Farage, it is rather alarming that even a powerful politician can even face this level of censorship from banks who really shouldn't have any of that power at all. Because of this reliance on functional banks, this highlights, in my mind, the greater risks of a cashless society, which we'll get to in a moment actually, because one thing that is constantly brought up in many a discussion about cash versus card is the surcharge. Some companies, card companies, banks, and even card readers put an additional charge on the transaction for using their technology. This is often a sticking point for people and is something that is put on forums constantly. A £5 sterling note would go through many hands and the same amount of money would remain in the system. £5 would go to the butcher, who would use that to pay for something else, and then that £5 would be used to pay something else, and so on. It goes around and it comes around. It remains £5. However, the moment you include a surcharge of even 0.5%, a small amount is taken from the person's account to make that transaction. This is unreasonable because what does it benefit? That goes straight to the bank. That shouldn't really have any stake in the transaction or even the place that it was made in. If we take a random bank like, say, Halifax, which has, what was it, 27 million customers, let's say only 1/3 of them have a current account. It's probably a lot more, but let's be generous for our calculations here. So 1/3 of them, and they use their card just once a day to make a purchase of about £40. That's based on my time of Amazon, where I topped up my van with that amount of fuel per day. Even with a surcharge of just 0.5%, the bank gets £1.8 million per day. That is unreasonable. And you bear in mind that cash is a more tactile way of measuring your finances. Cash is king, according to many, and when I go out, I always prefer using cash for drinks, since you can always feel when you're running out of money. Very important after a few stiff drinks. taking one's card and tapping it again and again and again is too dangerous on a night out. And as a good friend of mine in Australia found out the hard way, before you know it, you'll be woken up in the midst of a hangover to the bailiffs demanding to pay your mortgage, or your mortgage to be paid up. It's incredibly dangerous. Just tap away your card all night long. And whilst many bars might say, oh, we've got policies against that, yeah, that's less of a comfort than you might think. And quite frankly, getting that bad is all too easy to happen. In addition, cash has a better feel in the hand than a piece of plastic. You know what it feels like. You can pass it around. It's good. Of course, many people have issues with wallets not having enough space to hold increasing amounts of small change that builds up, and that's something I've found many a time. But there are ways to mitigate that. Most high street banks will accept cash deposits. So you can say you've got a handful of silver that you need to deposit. Put it on the bag, pop it in the bank, it goes straight into your account, so you can still use it to pay the gas bill. This is something so-called neobanks don't do, which is somewhat ridiculous when they only allow deposits from accounts you already have. It makes them seem like auxiliary more than a main bank. So how are they going to be taken seriously when you can just go for your normal bank, just put money in, take money out, have your money transferred in there, have it transferred out whenever? Why bother having another bank? They'll just charge you money going in and out all the time. If you can just stick with a bank, that's a regular payment. It's really that simple. Another use of those spare coins is in donations. You can use it for charity boxes. People come to your door, you can pop a few coins in. You see a band playing. Oh, good. What's this charity? You'll Save the Children. Excellent. Here's a couple of quid. It all adds up. Church tithing is another one. Put a few coins in the tray and it goes around. Many people may have issue with that, but it's still a use for that spare change. The main crux of this issue, in my opinion, is the homeless. You can give cash to the homeless, no trouble at all. You see a person outside just holding a bowl, put a few coins in, no trouble at all. No trouble at all. The moment they hold up a card machine, you look suspicious. It really does. Small change may not mean much to us, but it builds up and gives people a lot of help. The moment you hold a card machine, it's harder to judge what you're putting in. Tips are simpler to give in cash and much safer to give to those who need. In a cashless society, those who don't have an appropriate bank or can't get money transfers from others will naturally struggle to get anything to spend. In a cashless, capitalist world, it is the poorest who will suffer the most. It is this that makes this the true work of the devil, in my opinion. Something that only benefits those who have it and can work in the system, whilst excluding those who can, for any number of reasons, not use it. This is a major issue in our society. Unless we address it, we can't use these devices extensively. Add that to the ever-present risk of data being stolen without our knowledge, banks closing accounts on seeming whims without giving any explanation, refusing to give information about it. It's utterly ridiculous. And any number of medical or technological problems that could make the implant or subsequent use of these devices ill-advised at best, And we start to see the RFID chips becoming less of a benefit to mankind, and more of a gateway to a dystopian system where only those in power benefit from any interaction, even those of a charitable nature. Some might say that it has a ring of religious oppression to it, but in this instance of everyday interactions, it's more of an economical division getting bigger. This isn't the vision that Christ had for the world. He had a vision of those who were weaker being helped by the strong, the poor being bolstered by the rich, and the powerful deferring to the powerless. Instead of a typical hierarchy of power and wealth controlling benefits and support, it should be a truly equal society where we work together for the common good. A utopia of sorts. True, this seems unlikely, but only because with our society as it is, we can't make the changes necessary to make it happen. Adding things that will only increase the divide between us benefits no one. The devil is in the details. And if we take it on the mark, it only increases the chances of us becoming the very thing Christ is trying to avoid. I know many people say, I don't have a right to tell you what to do, but if I had to give you any advice, it would be keep using cash. Cash is king, remember that. I am sort of hoping that the Royal Mint putting out the new King Charles coins will keep coin collectors busy for the next few years, assuming the Mint gets around to it at some point. I need to look that up, actually. If someone offers you the RFID chip, seriously consider the downsides of it. And if at all possible, say no. And only go for banks where you can exchange cash both ways. Both putting cash into the bank and taking cash out. There are still banks out there that do that and have a bank that will talk to you. If they start to refuse questions about why is this happening, stop using them. This company did that to me. Please stop using them. Stay safe. And God be with you, my friends.